It's Week 7 in the Blue Collar Football League, and this week we take a look at the top teams in the Western Conference, starting with a rematch between the Indiana Tornadoes and the Indy Bison Red. The Tornadoes won the first meeting 20-8 on June 3rd and have remained in first place in the Western Conference ever since. Last week, they avenged their only league loss of the season so far by knocking off the Columbus Gladiators 20-12. For the Bison Red, that earlier loss, along with a forfeit, led to a 1-3 record in June. But they started July with a shutout win against the Southern Indiana Bobcats to jump into third place before having a bye last week. The Bison Red got the ball to start the game, and on their first play from scrimmage, Andre Wells went right up the middle before being rolled down at the Tornadoes' 45 for a 10-yard gain. Then, facing a 3rd and 3, Dom Rogers connected with Wes Hudson for 10 yards and another first down at the 25. On the next play, Elijah Smith was in the backfield. He couldn't find anything on the right side, but he worked her way to the left, sidestepped some tackles, and made it 11 yards down to the 17. The Bison Red drive moved down to the 3-yard line, but on 4th and goal, Rogers was unable to connect with Hudson, and the Tornadoes had held on downs. On the Tornadoes' first play, Sergio Holst took a handoff. He found some room on the left side and picked up 16 yards. On the next play, Floyd Johnson quickly found Gabriel Abraham, who gained 14 yards, and in 2 plays, the Tornadoes were out to the 35. However, the drive stalled there, and the Tornadoes faced a 4th and 12. Abraham took the snap, but then took off, and he was able to gain 14 yards and a first down out to the 47. The drive lingered into the second quarter, and the Tornadoes again lined up the punt, this time on 4th and 23. Once again, Abraham took off, found some room, but Wilkin came up to deliver the blow, stopping him well short and giving the ball back to the Bison Red. The Bison Red managed just 1 first down before punting the ball back to the Tornadoes. And on Indiana's first play, Johnson found Abraham open over the middle for 22 yards. 2 plays later, it was 3rd and 7 when Holst found some room up the middle, broke a tackle, and picked up 15 yards into Bison Red territory. The Tornadoes faced another 3rd down when Johnson's pass was tipped by Curtis Chester and picked off by Michael Scott, who was brought down by Johnson at midfield. Again, the Tornadoes' defense forced a punt. And when they got the ball back just after the 2-minute warning, they quickly faced a 4th and 3 when Johnson connected with Terrell Simmons for 13 yards to the 40. On the next play, Johnson rolled out before finding Abraham. He found some room and made it 22 yards before just being tripped up at the 38. The Tornadoes used up their final timeout, however, and on the final play of the half, Johnson rolled out before firing a deep pass that fell incomplete, keeping the game scoreless after 1 half of play. The defenses continued to dominate in the second half as the 2 teams combined for just 1 first down in the 3rd quarter. On 4th and 2, Johnson looked for Holst, but the pass was broken up by Ahmad Butler. The Bison Red did manage 1 first down, but that was followed by 4 straight incomplete passes, including this one on 4th down intended for Ty Baker. The Tornadoes faced a 4th and inches, but Jimmy Starks led the Bison Red defense in stuffing the run for a 3-yard loss, giving them the ball at the 31. But for the 5th time in the game, the Bison Red could not convert in Tornadoes territory as this pass from Rogers intended for Stephen Brown fell incomplete on 4th and 6. The score remained 0-0 into the 4th quarter when the Tornadoes punted and the Bison Red faced a 3rd and 11. Rogers scrambled but was picked off by Daquan Tunstall. He was on the way back, but he lost the ball, and Tyree Hutchins was there to recover for the Bison Red, helping them maintain the possession. The Tornadoes do eventually get the ball back on a punt, but their offense goes nowhere. And this time, Abraham does go through with the punt, and it rolls inside the 10 before being downed at the 7-yard line. Penalties move the Bison Red back to their own 2-yard line when Brown, now at quarterback, escaped the end zone, he took off and ran for 10 yards with a penalty at the end, adding 15 more yards for a first down. Later, as the clock rolled under 5 minutes, the Bison Red faced a 4th and 3. Brown dropped back the pass, looked over the middle, the pass was tipped and picked off by TK Henderson. He took off and had plenty of blockers. He was able to make his way in. Finally, we had a touchdown in this game. However, the celebration by the Tornadoes did cost them 15 yards on the kickoff. On the 2-point attempt, Rogers rolled out, couldn't find anybody. He flipped the ball in desperation. It was intercepted, and the try was no good, keeping the Tornadoes' lead 6-0 with 4 minutes and 36 seconds remaining in the game. Because of the celebration penalty, the Tornadoes kicked off from their own 20. Tyree Hutchins fielded the kick at midfield, and he was able to work his way across the field and pick up 18 yards, setting up the Bison Red at the 26-yard line. Rogers went back to quarterback, and on the first play, he connected with D. Baker for 9 yards along the sideline. On the next play, it was Wells taking a handoff up the middle for 8 yards, setting up a 1st and goal at the 9-yard line. After an incomplete pass, Baker tried the jet sweep. He didn't find any room and was pulled down by Angel Russell for a 9-yard loss. That set up 3rd and goal from the 18 when Rogers floated out a pass. Brown hauled it in and was in the end zone. After some discussion, it was determined he was in for a touchdown to tie the score at 6-6. On the Bison Red's 2-point attempt, Smith took a handoff and pushed his way into the end zone along with the rest of the line for the 2 points that had the Bison Red ahead 8-6 with 2:29 remaining. A series of penalties meant the Bison Red had to kick off from their own 5-yard line, but the kick did manage to get out at the midfield, and a penalty on the Tornadoes on the return caused them to start their drive at the 48. Following 2 incomplete passes, Johnson rolled out to his right and fired a pass that Henderson grabbed out of a crowd and was even able to push his way forward for 21 yards down to the 27 at the 2-minute warning. Then the Tornadoes faced a 4th and 3 when Johnson connected with Keyshawn Tunstall for 8 yards down to the 12-yard line. On the next play, the Tornadoes tested the running game, but Sergio Host was surrounded and brought down by Kyrie Allen for a 1-yard loss. On 2nd down, Johnson looked to the end zone, but his pass was picked off by Jay Cross in the end zone, effectively sealing the win for the Bison Red. All that was left was for the Bison Red to kneel out the remaining 47 seconds for them to come away with a big 8-6 victory against the Tornadoes. The Tornadoes outgained the Bison Red 194 yards to 127, but the 2-point conversion by the Bison Red proved to be the difference in the game. For the Tornadoes, Gabriel Abraham was the second leading rusher with 27 yards and the leading receiver with 44 yards. He also averaged 35.5 yards on 2 punts, including one that was down inside the 20. Holtz was the leading rusher with 29 yards, while Johnson completed 12 of 29 passes for 117 yards. He also ran for 18 yards. Trey Tunstall led the defense with 10 tackles, while TK Henderson had 5 tackles and 75 all-purpose yards, including 41 on the interception return, 13 on kick returns, and a 21-yard reception. For the Bison Red, Wells was the leading rusher with 31 yards. Rogers completed 8 of 24 passes for 67 yards and did have the game-winning touchdown at the end. King was the leading receiver with 3 catches for 26 yards. Jimmy Starks led the defense with 11 tackles, 3 for loss, while Curtis Jester had 8 tackles, 1 for loss, and Ahmad Butler had 3 tackles and 2 pass breakups. The loss was the second of the season for the Tornadoes in BCFL play, opening the door for the Cavalry to move into first place in the Western Conference. Speaking of the Cavalry, they were on the road, and after falling behind 6-0 early, reached halftime with a 12-6 lead against the Southern Indiana Bobcats. Kentuckiana got the ball to start the second half, and on their first play, Jordan Bender connected with Amos Nanny for 13 yards out to the 27. On the next play, Bender pump faked before going deep. His pass fell incomplete, but the pass interference flags on the play resulted in a 36-yard gain into Bobcat territory. Following the sack, the Cavalry faced a 2nd and 16 when Bender found Rashad Britton, who picked up 15 yards down to the 15. Another loss led to a 4th down, but Bender rolled out and he was able to find Britton again, this time for 12 yards, setting up a 1st and goal at the 7. On the next play, Bender took off, the ball came out, and the initial ruling, after some discussion, was a fumble recovered by the Bobcats. However, after even more discussion, that was changed and the Cavalry maintained possession. Kentuckiana took advantage, as on 3rd and goal, Bender faced pressure, he got rid of the ball, and Darius Dale pulled it down in the end zone for the touchdown to put the Cavalry ahead 18-6 midway through the 3rd quarter. Parker Osborne fielded the kick that followed just past the 20-yard line. He found an opening and took off before finally being pulled down in Cavalry territory. But on the second play, Southern Indiana was unable to handle the handoff. Instead, Fred Hill recovered the fumble for the Cavalry. A holding penalty moved Kentuckiana back, and when Bender went deep this time, he was picked off by Cantrell Harris. He found some blocking along the right sideline before making a cut back into the middle of the field that was open for him to make his way for a 69-yard interception return for a touchdown. Andre Atkins followed that with an extra point that pulled the Bobcats to within 5, 18-13, with 6 minutes remaining in the 3rd quarter. Kentuckiana drove down to midfield when they faced a 3rd and 5. Bender saw some room up the middle and picked up 11 yards into Bobcat territory. On the next play, Bender looked to his left, but then looped around to the right before letting go of a pass that Brandon Corker hauled in for 39 yards down to the 8-yard line. On the first play of the 4th quarter, however, Bender rolled out before being pulled down by Moses Morgan for a sack. And on 4th and goal, it was again Morgan stopping Bender for a turnover on downs. Later in the quarter, the Cavalry faced a 4th and 3 when Dale took the lateral, but he had nowhere to go. DJ Stevens made the tackle for loss, and the Bobcats had the ball at the 38-yard line with 4 minutes remaining. Penalties made it 1st and 30 for the Bobcats, but Tavares Rochelle took the ball himself and made up almost half that with 14 yards down to the 44. An offsides penalty gave Southern Indiana 5 more yards, and then Marquise Holt took the handoff, found plenty of room along the left side for 19 yards and a 1st down at the 20. The Bobcats then faced a 4th and 3 when Rochelle rolled out, looked for the end zone, and was picked off by Daz Morris with 1 minute and 52 seconds remaining in the game. On 1st down, Jermaine Quisenberry took a handoff and made a short gain, and the Bobcats recharged their final timeout with 1 minute 39 seconds remaining in the game. The Cavalry took a couple knees, but weren't able to quite kneel out the rest of the clock. So instead, Corker ran backwards before being pulled down just as time expired, and the Cavalry were able to hold on for an 18-13 win that put them in first place in the Western Conference. Looking at all the scores for the week, in addition to the 8-6 win by the Bison Red and the Cavalry beating the Bobcats 18-13, the Kentucky Spartans picked up their first win, a 28-7 win at home against the Lexington Bengals. Meanwhile, in the Eastern Conference, The Dukes and Wolfpack picked up forfeit wins while the Gladiators were off. Those results do mean we have a new leader in the Western Conference with the Cavalry at 4-1. The Tornadoes slip to second at 5-2, while the Bison Red stay third at 4-3. The Bobcats remain in fourth at 3-4. The Bengals are 2-4, and the Spartans are now just a game behind them at 1-5. In the Eastern Conference, not much changed, as the Dukes remain in first at 6-0, the Gladiators a game back at 5-1, and the Wolfpack a game behind them at 4-2. Looking at this week's schedule, the Bobcats, who have alternated wins and loss in BCFL play, will be on the road to face the Wolfpack, who have won 3 straight games. The Spartans will look for their second win as they go on the road to face the new leaders in the Western Conference, the Cavalry. The Bison Red will be on the road facing the Bengals. The Tornadoes and Gladiators will get wins, while the Dukes will be off this week. And finally, a look at the owners' poll, where there was quite a bit of movement this week. Even the Dukes and Gladiators exchanged positions, even though neither team played. The Cavalry, meanwhile, moved up to number 3, while the Tornadoes dropped down to 4. The Bison Red were one of the few teams to stay put, remaining at 5. The Wolfpack and Bobcats switched spots, with the Wolfpack now at 6 and the Bobcats at 7. Likewise, the Spartans jumped over the Bengals to 8, dropping the Bengals to 9, with the Seminoles and Predator Knights staying at 10 and 11.